One of my friends that I do LAN parties with, James, the one that brought the RV last time when we held the LAN, he asked me if I could help build the PC for his little brother. And when I say little brother, I don't actually mean little because he's just as large in stature as James is, which is way bigger than me. I mean little as in he's younger. I told him I'd be happy to help, but due to the ongoing graphics card shortage and scalping, it would be really tough to get him a solid graphics card that suits the rest of the build because he did have a decent budget to work with. One of the options was that we could hold off building and keep waiting, which I feel like really isn't a good option at all, especially if you don't have like an existing PC to hold you over. Another option would be to use an APU, but for some people that may not be enough performance for what they want to play. Another option is you could pay the scalper prices, which could be pretty steep right now depending on what card you want. And then there's the last option, one that I've been recommending to a lot of people if they want to build right now. So yeah, let's go over the build and see what we ended up with. Amazon product reviews are pretty much garbage nowadays. I rarely look at them anymore because it's mostly bad reviews or people who leave 5 stars just for the product showing up. This is where Lustre comes in. It's a free browser extension that helps you get the information that you need before making a purchase decision. I'm talking about trusted, in-depth reviews from well-known sources that we all know in the tech community. Sources that I've already been using for years, except now it's automatically gathered and organized for me. It also recommends similar products and groups them up at different price points so I can make the comparison myself and choose what's best for me and my own budget. I really like it and I think you will too. You can learn more about Lustre by clicking on the link down in the description below, and if it seems useful to you, definitely give it a try. Thanks for checking it out, and now let's get back to the video. It's been a really long time since I've made a build video where I don't have the PC like right here next to me as I'm shooting this A-roll, and that's because Jesse, James's brother that I'm building the PC for, lives over an hour away from me, but he happened to be in my area last minute over the holiday break, so to save him an unnecessary trip back and forth, I told him just to stop by and handed it off to him before I was able to record this video. Maybe I can put a cutout from the B-roll right here in its place. Yeah, let's go over the specs. Starting off with the CPU, we've got the Ryzen 7 5800X, which I was able to source during Black Friday on sale. Even with AMD recently announcing the new AM5 platform and Ryzen 7000 series desktop processors, and even with the 5800X3D that's eventually coming too, I'm confident that this 5800X will still remain relevant both price and performance wise. As I've repeated time and time again on the channel, products don't just all of a sudden become obsolete after one generation. And on top of that, there's factors like pricing and the availability of the new chips, the new motherboards and DDR5 RAM availability. All those things make the previous gen products still viable options. The 5800X doesn't come with a cooler out of the box, so we've got the NZXT Kraken X63 to do the job. This is a 280mm radiator AIO with two 140mm RGB fans, plenty capable of keeping the CPU nice and cool. The motherboard we're pairing with the 5800X is the MSI B550A Pro, which I found a really solid deal on. There was an Amazon warehouse promo running on top of the already open box discount, bringing this down to $80 before tax. For that price, it was an instant buy. This board has solid VRMs with huge heat sinks, USB-C not only at the rear I/O, but also a header for front-side connectivity, BIOS flashback, and plenty of fan headers. It's more than capable of supporting the 5800X that's being paired with it, and will be ready to handle an upgrade to a Ryzen 9 processor down the line if he chooses. For memory, we've got 32GB of Team Group T-Force Delta RGB and 4x8 configuration at 3200MHz CL16, and for storage, we're also going Team Group with the 1TB Cardia Zero Z440 NVMe Gen 4 SSD. This is a very fast Gen 4 drive with speeds up to 5000 megabytes per second read and 4400 megabytes per second write. We'll start him off with this for his primary boot drive, and depending on how quickly he fills it up, he can decide whether he wants to add more solid state storage or a much larger mechanical drive. The power supply in the system is the NZXT C750 Bronze semi-modular power supply. We aren't going to be throwing a beefy power-hungry graphics card into the system that will fully utilize this at the very moment, but the intent is to do so when he can source one at a reasonable price, and 750 watts will pretty much be able to handle any card that he throws at it. The case holding everything is going to be the NZXT H510 Flow. This is actually my first time building in this case. I've built in the H510 on numerous occasions, and this pretty much gives the same build experience, which is quite good in terms of cable management and routing. There's just now the added benefit of a mesh front panel for airflow to appease everyone who has been asking NZXT for years to incorporate. You may have noticed that I saved the graphics card for last, and I did that intentionally because it's the build up in this video that makes this build interesting. Everything so far more or less makes sense in terms of the part list, like none of the products are too far-fetched compared to one another. Here's a look at the summary so far before we add in the graphics card, and we're coming in a little under $1,000 before tax. In an ideal world, what would be really nice price to throw in here would be an MSRP RTX 3070. It'd make the perfect pairing for the rest of the build and would bring the total to about $1,500 plus tax, which would be more than reasonable for a system of these specs. But unfortunately, we don't live in an ideal world, and last I checked, 3070s are selling for upwards of $1,200 on eBay. That's a bit out of the build budget. After giving Jesse his options on what he'd like to do in the meantime, we decided on a GTX 970. Yep, my go-to when it comes to decently capable, overpriced, but still very affordable, value-oriented graphics card. These can usually be found for around $200, sometimes a little less. I managed to find this one for $175 on OfferUp. Had it been a local deal, that's all I would have had to pay, but this one was in New York, so shipping and taxes brought it up to the $200 mark. This is very much a temporary card. It's not going to be in the system forever. The plan is to get him up running right now with more capabilities than what a Ryzen APU would be able to give. This has about double the performance actually of the Vega 7 from a 5600G. And while he's enjoying the system as it is now, he can sign up for all the different queues and raffles and shuffles from all the various e-tailers until he can find a fitting card that's reasonably priced, at which point he can just take out the GTX 970 and sell and recoup most of the cost. Building the system itself was very straightforward. I've used pretty much all these parts or variations of them in past builds before. The weirdest thing about it though was having a really nice and new system and then throwing in a 7-year-old graphics card into it. Not for jokes or wacky experimental reasons either, but as an actual viable solution. What is this timeline that we're even in right now? But here it is, the completed build. I ended up running 2 sets of benchmarks for this video. One set was for the build as configured with the GTX 970 in it. This shows how the PC performs now, which is capable of playing a lot of titles at 1080p medium, with an exception of like the newer AAA titles which need to be played at low. I ran a second set of tests with an RTX 3070 in there, which would be ideally what ends up in the PC down the line. For an apples to apples comparison, I did keep the identical graphics settings as what the GTX 970 would run at, so that the FPS gains could be directly compared side by side. For overclocks, I've got Precision Boost Overdrive enabled, which does have the 5800X sporadically running at 4.85 GHz on some of the cores throughout the testing. The RAM is running at the 3200 MHz XMP, and here are the overclocks per graphics card. GTX 970 results will be shown on your left, and RTX 3070 results will be shown on your right. Here are the benchmarks. Alright, there you have it. Directly comparing the results at those given settings, the RTX 3070 pretty much doubled to tripled the average FPS across any given title compared to the GTX 970, which is to be expected given the 6-year age difference between them. It just sucks that they can't be found at a fair price right now. Like all of you, I'm still looking for the light at the end of the tunnel when it comes to this graphics card madness. We recently got announcements for the RTX 3050 and RX 6500 XT at CES. Those aren't going to be cards that we're targeting for this system, but just in terms of overall availability for a lot of people out there, these could be viable solutions. But almost across the board, I've seen moaning and groaning from reviewers, content creators, and consumers alike because no one actually expects these to be obtainable anywhere for their MSRP, which is $200 to $250 depending on which card you're looking at. We'll have to see what eventually happens with those. But in times like this, we can either keep complaining or we can try to find creative solutions and work with the hand that we've been dealt. I'm curious for anyone out there who has built a system recently or are going to build one very soon, what is your graphics solution? Are you paying the scalper prices, going the APU route, considering a temporary solution that's cheaper, kind of like what we did in this video? Or are you one of the lucky few who have been able to catch a card near MSRP during one of the infrequent drops from like Best Buy or like AMD or, directly from one of them? Let me know down in the comments below. But yeah, that's going to wrap it up for this video though. I hope you all enjoyed and found this either helpful or entertaining. I want to thank you all as always for your continued support. I want to thank the channel members for their extra support, as well as anyone who has picked up some of the official Nobe merch, which is now available. Links will be in the description below. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you in the comments as well as in the next stream and or video. Bye.